when you got to get stuff done, you do it yourself and just make it happen one way or another, right? I feel like.
Yeah, that is true. But equally for you as a business owner, you definitely have had to learn how not to micromanage.
Oh yeah.
You've had to learn how to delegate and just have trust in your team. Say, I believe they have the chops to get it done.
Yes, I agree. All right, perfect. Yes, sir. Yeah, no, it's been interesting. We talk about this on the radio a lot, where there's a fine balance of understanding, like being self-aware of the people that you're working with, having empathy towards them because they come from different backgrounds and different, they were born and raised differently. And, how do you, as a leader, how do you manage in a way where it's not tyrannical?
That is a very strong word.
Just it's just work. You show up and do the job, and then you leave. But at the same time, how do you implement it where they feel like the ship that they're on, they feel just as ingrained or part of the team and ingrained into the vision. That's been the biggest, having that emotional intelligence when things aren't productive, when productivity is low. Why is that? Why is somebody not doing or producing as much as they were? Not knowing, hey, they just got into an accident this morning and they came into work and their mood's been down, and how they act is not because of you. Nothing to do with what's happening at work, but something that happened in the morning or things like that, and just being like trying to empathize with that. And I see a lot of like corporations, for example, I've seen where they try to force culture and they try to force things. For example, they try to force corporate events, or they try to, we haven't done a team event together. Let's just go bowling or something. And it comes off very ingenuine. Doesn't come off genuine from the leaders on the team. It's just like, we just have to do this because it's the right thing to do, or they forgot about it. So let's just implement a team event so that we feel like we're inclusive. We feel like we're a team. And so it can, as being an employee, you can see that pretty easily. You can kind of see the smoke, if you will. And so how do you be genuine? How do you have that balance between, hey, we still got to get work done, but I am your leader, I am your boss or manager, whatever. How do you balance the two so that you're not just it's not just I'm here to work and that's it.
You raise an interesting point in terms of delivering empathy to the people that work for you.
Yeah.
However, how do you balance delivering empathy to improve production and or turnaround while also having that big elephant in the room of here's a looming deadline?
Yes.
Like, how do you balance both and meet the expectations of both the end result and also delivering empathy?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's the hardest thing, right? Because at the end of the day, you still have to get the thing that you have to do done. But you also want to retain your staff and have staff retention be the highest as possible. How do you build a culture if all you do is just come in and work and then leave? How do your leaders as managers with high pressure deadlines, turnaround times, deliverables, how do you also include understanding the person that you're working with or people that you're working with? So Kenny and I had this debate on the radio on Friday about how do leaders make their team feel safe? Like, I'm coming to work, but there's also, so the debate was also having too much of an open door policy is also a hindrance. So I took the debate of like, their door should be open, should be an open door policy. There should be empathy, but at the same time, it can't be too open because, for example, your team now might heavily rely on you and ask you questions and things that they can probably do. They could probably take the initiative or take the assertiveness or make those decisions, but they want to have a chat with you for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes on something that they should have just been able to handle. That's just one sort of kind of problem in terms of that where employees might become too reliant on a manager that is, hey, you have any questions? Come just talk to me. I can help you. But then where's the balance of like, hey, no, I'm not going to help you on this. You got to take the initiative. So that's just kind of one.
Do you do that because let me rephrase that. Do you think with this half open door policy, certain individuals go through that door and talk to their leader or yourself for 5-10 minutes because they want that self-assurance and like, hey, it's what you said makes sense, please go do it? Do they need the self-assurance? Do you think that's why?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And at the same time, sometimes you just want to chat. You just want to have you just want to talk and be able to talk about certain things. But again, it's that balance, right? You don't want to be unempathetic and not help your team. Again, Kenny brought up a good example on the radio last week where he was talking about how when he was hired to sell homes, the boss, the CEO was like, all right, I'm relying on you young guys to just go and sell homes. And there was no direction. And he felt he has a personality where he wants a little bit of direction. He doesn't want to handhold the entire way, but give me the sandbox that I need to play in. Maybe give me a little bit of direction on the process, the system, on how do you sell these homes so that I can emulate that, or at least understand your process from A to Z so that I can take it and go. Where there was no direction, completely open door, just like completely like, hey, you guys got it. Whenever, you don't have to ask me for anything. You guys can do it. Super laid back manager or CEO. So I feel like, again, it's a tough balance, but I think you got to find something in between.
Do you think in order for businesses or clients to succeed, whether it be Kenny with real estate, yourself, and your business, even with me in my corporate life, or even with online coaching, do you believe that there needs to be some basic sandbox that needs to be provided in order for these individuals to meet success?
I do. I think so. Because you always want to sell your vision for your business or what you're doing. So you being the leader or the person that's steering the boat, you need to be able to give the sandbox of, hey, this is kind of what we've done. Not saying that you can't get out of that sandbox, because there might be a better way. But providing what has been done that has already been, I guess, successful to show, hey, this is kind of our systems and processes. But if you have a better idea, if you have a better strategy, if you have ideas to help move that ship forward even, or maybe scale it, or maybe go faster or get projects done quicker, then be open to that. But I feel like there has to be something of like, hey, this is where we're headed. This is our sandbox. This is where we want to go. How can you adapt and understand it? And then from there, if there's other ideas and other things that might be better, that those are brought forth.
Interesting that you say if they believe there's a better sandbox,
yes,
let you know.
Yeah.
But in that same discussion, we're also talking about having the door half open for an open communication.
Yeah.
And these same individuals are walking in for self-assurance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you think, therefore, that these are two different individuals with two different mentalities? You have one individual who's coming in for self-assurance.
Yes.
Hey, boss.
Yes.
I'm doing this. Is it okay?
Yes.
Hey, manager, director, I am trying ABC. Am I on the right path? Do you approve?
Yes.
That's one segment.
Yes.
The other segment is, okay, here's the sandbox. I have taken the initiative to do research, understand the personas, understand where the vision is. I understand the business and the KPIs.
Yes.
But I believe that perhaps we can alter the sandbox to be a lot more efficient. So based on these two mentalities I've just described to you, can this be the same person, or are they two different people?
It's probably two different people, right? I mean, they could be the same, but I feel like the person who is looking for self-assurance is probably not confident enough to bring their ideas forward of what that might be in terms of a good direction, because maybe they don't know, right? So they're constantly asking for reassurance or validation with certain processes. But maybe down the road, once they get their feet wet, they start seeing gaps that the leader might not, because they've just been doing this process for years on years. A new, fresh perspective, someone comes in, is looking at the territory and saying, oh, I see a gap here. Why hasn't Omid done this? Oh, I see a gap here. Why hasn't he done this? So, but okay, I'm going to go with the flow. For now, I'm going to get my bearings. I'm going to understand the process. And then again, having enough of an open door policy where that person is comfortable sharing, hey, Omid, I see this gap here. Have you guys thought of doing this? Not being afraid to tell me, because if they're afraid to tell me, you know what, I'm not going to tell Omid because my idea is just going to get shut down. That's where your team can actually be a little bit of a hindrance, because they might have good ideas, but they choose to keep it to themselves. So for example, I'm going to just bring my own personal example. When I used to work for a marketing agency, I worked there for 2.5, 3 years. And the first probably 6 to 8 months, I was, I understood the systems. I got my feet wet, same thing. And then I started bringing ideas forward. And the leader, the boss would take those ideas and implement certain, some of them he would implement, some of them he wouldn't. But what happened was there was some resentment of some of the outside projects that I was doing personally. And so he would bring it up, and there was this weird sort of vibe. And after that, I just said, I don't want to share my personal life with this person. I don't want to share my personal projects with this person. And I don't want to start, why should I incorporate my ideas or help the ship move forward if this person is resenting some of the personal projects that I'm doing? And so I think, again, I know that's a little bit of a different scenario, but I feel like, again, the open door policy, I think if it's too open, then it becomes a hindrance, because this person was also like a homie. So this manager was friends, like we're friends in here, and we're working as friends and colleagues. I'm not your boss. And then something would happen, and all of a sudden he would put the boss hat on. And so it was so confusing. So sometimes it's like, I'm so open with you, but then then all of a sudden you put the boss hat on and you crack the whip, and it's like, whoa, what am I supposed to do here? So now I have my guard up. So now I have to think of, I shouldn't say certain things to this person, because if I do, he might put the boss hat on, but he acts like a friend. And so there were those kind of scenarios. So I feel like there's probably always going to be a barrier. There's always going to be not a barrier, but like probably a little bit of a gap, because of that hierarchy or because of the position that you're in. But it's a fine balance of what does that look like? Because if it's too open, it now could become a hindrance when quote unquote shit hits the fan. But if it's too closed, then your team isn't able to implement ideas.
I think this is almost what every growing and great leader tries to balance to their best ability. Of course, when it's friends first and then boss and employees second, things get kind of gray. I cannot imagine the stress you went through in that marketing agency. But that's a separate topic. But you growing as a leader, or anyone in their leadership position in any business, trying to deliver empathy, trying to allow individuals to grow in their own right.
Yeah.
Play in their sandbox. Maybe initially you need self-assurance, but after that, building the confidence to try things on your own is important in terms of developing long-term skills. And as a leader, seeing people grow is very fulfilling, I'm sure, as you can understand, but it's also letting individuals understand, yes, this door is half open, but I don't want you to always use it as a crutch. You need to grow on your own to develop the confidence in your skills so you can come forth to me and pitch ideas.
Yes.
And not be afraid of it being shot down, because if we want to see people grow in their business, in their health and fitness, or no matter what it might be, them going off on their own, taking the initiative and learning within the sandbox we have set to their best ability is great growth for them.
Yeah.
We can't stop that growth.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just telling them, no, you always have to rely on me.
That's right. That's right. Speaking of sandboxes, brother, well, first off, I appreciate you coming on to the podcast again. I know we didn't do a little introduction, but this is the second time you're on. One was with Kenny, so if our listeners are listening, you know, Pradeep was on, it's been a while now, and things have changed a little bit in your personal life and your career and things like that, but I appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, Owen, thank you for having me. I mean, you know, it was great chatting to Kenny in the first episode. It's been a while since that point, and we did talk a lot in the first one. But for all you listeners, it's amazing being back on this podcast, the Second Floor podcast. We don't have to do the intro. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, very short and brief. For those who don't know me, I work a very ambitious corporate career. I do have very specific goals that I want to achieve in my corporate life. But beyond that, on the side, I do offer online health and fitness coaching to very ambitious, driven entrepreneurs and other corporate professionals as well. And you might ask, why is he only looking at this demographic of corporate professionals? And the simple reason is, and this harks back to our first chat almost 20 minutes ago, empathy.
Right.
I can best deliver empathy to corporate professionals who are working a busy 8 to 7, sometimes on the weekends. They have a side hustle. They're traveling. They might have children. They might go from London to New York and back, but they still want to get into the best shape they can and also feel their best while developing long-term skills. So that's where I can best empathize. Because not only have I moved from London, England, back to Canada, I've changed jobs. I'm trying to grow my corporate career. So there are a lot of traits I can go back and forth with and say, hey, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
It's okay if you feel this way. So that's a short intro.
No, I appreciate that, brother. And I personally, you know, obviously have hired you to help me on that journey, right? And I feel like over the last, you know, few months of, you know, working together, and I think it's been a little longer than that, but simple things of just, I personally want to just say, I appreciate the systems that you've helped me implement in my life, even how simple they are, but they have had a profound effect on my habits. Just simple things, for example, getting your daily steps in, for example, is such a huge, for me, it was such a huge thing. As simple as it is, there's a numerical goal or like a target, just like in business, just like in the things that I do. It's like, okay, I got to hit certain steps every single day. And if I don't hit those steps, I'm not achieving the goal that was set out in the first place. And, you know, personally for me, you know, over the last couple of years, I've gained some weight. And it's all been from dropping everything and putting my business first to try to put myself in a better position for my own livelihood. And you know, it's taken a few years, and thankfully, you know, business is good and it's running, and it finally has gotten me to a place where I am I'm rolling in my business and my personal projects. But I feel slow. I felt slower. I felt unproductive. I felt, you know, sleepy and drowsy middle of the day. And I realized that it was one of those things of like, hey, like even my parents are very direct with me. And they're like, hey, you got fat. Like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? Like, hey, you're chasing the bag. You're chasing money. Why are you chasing money? Your health is important. And they would always constantly remind me, even now, and they're like, hey, look, like, go to the gym, do stuff. And that was kind of why I reached out to you, because I've seen what you've done with your clients, and I see that is a niche that you specialize in, and I'm happy to, and I want this as an accountability for myself, where I don't need hand holding per se. I just need that strategic direction of, hey, I've never had that in the gym, because it's always been like, go lift as hard as you can, and then go home, try to eat the right things, and that's it. There has never been a strategic direction in my fitness journey. So I just wanted to say that. So,
well, Omid, thank you. I mean, so far working with you has been fantastic.
Yeah.
The fact that you first focused on your business and then finally understood, you know what, your health has taken a back seat. It's really wonderful to hear you articulate that, because many business and ambitious business owners focus on top line business numbers, and that's their baby. I completely understand that. But at some point, they have to consider, and you completely come around and notice this, at some point they have to consider, damn, you know, like, is my health on point? Like how do I feel? Do I like the way I look? Do I have the energy to continue pushing my business forward? Am I happy in terms of how I'm fitting into my suit? All those things do play a factor. If not at the forefront when you wake up in the morning, it might slowly eat at you. So I mean, there's a reason people say health is wealth. There's a reason for it. It might not be the priority for every businessman or businesswoman initially, but at some point it will come around, and they will start to take notice that I have to pay a bit more attention to the food I eat, how active I am, so on and so forth. With working with you, Omid, what's really great is I have given you the sandbox, and this goes back to us about the sandbox conversation. I've given you the sandbox. I've told you, hey, here is where I would like you to play, and I'm going to guide you in terms of how to play in the sandbox. Here are all the options. Here are the skills I'm going to help guide you learn along your journey. And if you have questions, again, open door policy.
Yeah.
You can just contact me and just ask questions, because I want you to learn along this journey.
Yes. No, and I appreciate that, because I think a lot of I empathize with a lot of business owners or leaders who I can see that the business is first, and it's been first for many years, and you get into this habit of not going to the gym and not putting your health forward and eating bad, and it's just like, quickly eat and just go back to the business. And I've done that. I've been the culprit of that. And one of the nice things is having a circle of friends who are constantly, they're always working out. Kenny, Raj, these guys in my circle, and more. They put their health first, and they put themselves first. And so the reminder of, hey, you know what? Like, I want to look good. Like, I'm on media, I'm on the podcast, I'm in videos. I don't want to look chunky. I want to look good. One of my inspirations, Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the icons of the world. Listening to him and seeing how hard he was grinding while having his bodybuilding career, or having the ambitions of getting into movies and doing certain things, but still, it was, the workouts never left his schedule. He still had those targets of keeping your health and your fitness a part of that, a part of your life. And so I try to remember those icons that I want to be one of. I want to be one of those people. I want to look good. I want to feel good. I want to look sexy. I want to be on camera. I want to have those things. I want to be successful in all realms of my life. And now I'm coming back to, I've lost that in terms of the fitness side of things. Now coming back to it, I'm very hungry to make some progress in that realm.
The progress for all the listeners, I don't think everyone listening understands the progress Omid has made in the time that we worked together. Because I've yet to show you your initial check-in photos. Because the first one, compared to the one you recently sent me, there's a massive difference in terms of overall change. I haven't shown to you yet, but I will after this interview.
Yeah.
In terms of looking at celebrities as idols or icons, that's fantastic. I think seeing what Arnold has done is really amazing, how he's changed his career from bodybuilding to acting to governor and then back to acting. That's great. When I hear individuals looking at, so let's just take The Rock. I want to be like The Rock. I want to be up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I want to get my workout in, go to work, come back, look after my family, and repeat. That works well and dandy for The Rock. The Rock has a team. He's $1 billion man.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has everyone around him making sure The Rock gets his food on his private jet to do press in, I don't know, London, right?
Yeah.
And so there has to be a bit of realistic expectation,
Right.
when considering what is achievable within someone's life.
Yeah.
And so there has to be an honest conversation. Can I physically wake up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, do my cardio, cook my meals, then go to work? Do you have that within your capacity? Or do you have 2 young kids that you have to look after and you don't have that time? Because I was working with a busy mom, 2 young kids. She was traveling for work, and we had to have a great conversation once a week, every Saturday or Sunday, and me just asking her, okay, this week, do you have a babysitter for your son? Yes or no? How will that change with her overall routine? Are you traveling for work? Right. Does the hotel have this gym equipment? Does it not? So again, realistic expectations is really key. And within that, we can start to set goals that are achievable and that come to, and you finally reach that end point.
Right.
Because that journey has to be so bespoke to you. And I think individuals or clients have to accept that this is my journey. I need to own it. And I should not compare myself to somebody else who has all the systems in place or someone who doesn't have children.
Yes. I'm curious, Pradeep, just from my own curiosity, when you started in your own personal fitness journey, was it an instant love of like, hey, I love, working out, I love being in the gym, and what did that look like from a starting point to, was it last year when you won the Naturals or the year before?
2021, yeah.
2021.
I won Nationals, yeah.
You won Nationals, right? And a huge achievement. Congrats, by the way. So I just want to know personally, just going back a little bit, what did that journey look like from when you started in the fitness space to understanding, hey, I want to take this a little more seriously and be extremely disciplined to the point where like, hey, I want to be up on stage. I kind of want to know that before we kind of get into a little bit more of the other stuff.
Sure. Great question. Initially, when I began lifting, it was literally because I enjoyed lifting.
Right.
It was to get bigger.
When did that start?
So I began lifting when I was 16.
Oh, okay.
That's when it first began.
Yeah.
When I used to live in Nova Scotia before I moved to Montreal. That's just when I began lifting in my garage. And then later on, when I moved to London, England, there weren't varsity sports in the university I went to. And so the guys and I, we would just continue to lift more and more. It was just a great time for us just to get together, banter, and just act the fool as we, boasted our egos amongst guys and lifting weight and whatnot. And it got more serious after I picked up my first Flex magazine.
Yes.
And I just kind of thought, is this even real? Like, is this even possible? Like, humans can look like this?
Yeah.
I'm like, this makes no sense. And so I began chipping away at that journey. And one thing led to another. And someone said, you should try competing. You should try stepping on stage. So I thought, let me try.
Right.
What's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing is I look like a fool. I don't know what I'm doing. But next time I have more experience and I come back to it. And because I'm just generally a very competitive person in my corporate day job and also outside in life, trying to be one of the best at something, at anything, is very fulfilling to me.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to me to say that I am one of the best in the country as a drug-free and drug-tested bodybuilder in this weight category.
That's incredible.
What's interesting is that feeling of feeling amazing lasted for about a week. Then after that, there was this huge void. Huge void.
Interesting.
And then that was the second part in my journey of, okay, now what's next? How do I take my learnings from this experience, apply it to my corporate job, into my business, and then what's next for me in competing? So it's an ongoing evolution of goal-orientated, competitive mindset. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. And especially the fact that you decided to say, you know what, let me try this, and if I'm act a fool on stage, if I'm not where I'm supposed to be, it's okay. Because like a lot of people, especially being on stage, whether that's performing or whether that's on the bodybuilding stage, it's uncomfortable to put yourself out there like that. And especially I feel like in bodybuilding, because you're literally naked and you are showcasing your body to the world or to the audience, I think is a very vulnerable place. That's super being open and vulnerable to that criticism, if you will, and just competing in that. I think is I find it very I find it very, very notable, and I find I have a lot of respect for bodybuilders, and personally for me, not being a bodybuilder, but just again, idolizing, looking at guys who have that specific body, looking great, feeling great, but at the same time they have their own projects and they're doing their own things. I want to emulate that because I feel like being physically fit and being healthy. You don't have to be a bodybuilder, but being healthy and being fit, I feel like has a domino effect in every part of your life, and especially in business. Because if you are fat and sluggish, you're going to feel you're not going to have those as many productive hours as somebody who is healthy. You won't be as aware. And I personally felt that, where I've ate bad for a week. I've been grinding 12, 13 hours, 14 hours on my business, and 2 o'clock hits and I instantly feel like I need to have a nap. I feel foggy, I feel drained. And I've had those moments and I've had those days. But when I've worked out, when I've had my water, when I've moved a little bit during the day, I actually feel better and I feel way more productive. And so I feel like it has a profound effect just from that, just from simple facts like that. So
couple of great points you mentioned, Omid. One, I'm happy you mentioned it is a very vulnerable position for anyone to be in when they step on stage.
Yeah.
Whether you're man or woman, stepping on stage in a bikini, or if you're a figure competitor, men's classic physique, men's bodybuilding, in trunks, you are asking to be judged by the judges in front and the audience who is there to attend. It is not it's not something someone thinks of doing when they wake up in the morning. And so to put yourself out there for anyone who has competed or is planning to compete, I have a huge amount of respect for their confidence to step on stage. It takes a lot of confidence, no matter who you are, a first timer, or if you're a seasoned veteran stepping on stage, it takes a lot of confidence. You have to have confidence in your body to step on stage. And mentally, for people to develop that resiliency and belief in themselves to step on stage, you have to give respect where respect is due. Secondly, regarding feeling sluggish at work or not being as effective in their business, it does really come down to the quality of your sleep, the level of stress you're enduring at work, outside of work, because lifestyle stress factors play a lot. the quality of your food, how energetic do you feel. If you wrap all of those in this holistic ecosystem, it plays a factor on your corporate performance, on your business performance. And I'm very happy you mentioned once you began lifting, once you began paying attention to your water intake, the quality of your meals, you then began to feel a lot more energetic. You began to feel the difference. And I think that's important. And unless someone takes the initiative to decide, I want to feel different, I don't enjoy how I feel, I want to improve that. That, I think, is the first step.
Yeah, I agree. And that was that's why I reached out to you, is because I felt it. And I felt like personally, I just needed just a bit of guidance. I needed that sandbox to kind of figure out, okay, what does that, I've always been in the gym. I've always lifted, me and my cousin, shout out to Raheem, I used to be a scrawny brown kid in high school. I used to be basketball, karate. So six days a week I was doing some sort of activity. But when I got interested in the gym and weightlifting, who doesn't want to look like Arnold? I mean, personally, I wanted to look like Arnold. I'm like, yo, this is sick. This is dope. I want to look big. I want to have that muscle. I want to be able to walk around like that. And as a skinny brown kid, you don't understand. That is a complete change of just eating in general. You just have increasing eating, lifting heavy. And so my initial intake from lifting was my cousin, because my cousin was also interested in and he was a big guy, and he actually was also pretty skinny and scrawny. And within 3-4 years, he's had some muscle, he's got some weight to him. And I was like, bro, how'd you do that? I need to add on some weight. And I remember, brother, I remember us lifting like 3 or 4 times a week. And, his advice, because we're not experts in the space, eat as much as you can, Omid. That was the deal. It was like, you are burning a lot with all the basketball and cardio you're doing. Eat 4 or 5 times a day, and it was like big, us brown guys eating rice and curry and lentils and all these different things. It's like, just eat plates and plates on that. And on top of that, have quick mass. So it was like a quick mass smoothie. So it was like 3-4 meals a day. And then after dinner, pound down a quick mass smoothie. And man, the days where I would be at the sink or at the toilet ready to yak because I was just I couldn't eat, but it was like, you have to put it down because you want this weight, put it down. And I remember just those days, man, of just like doing the craziest things to try to gain that mass. And it worked. I mean, I gained weight for sure, and I got that mass. Had I not done that, but again, it was no guidance. It was like, what do we know? What do we know as guys that aren't in the space, but what do we know to just gain weight and get some mass? Okay, lift, that's the easy thing. Go to the gym, but double your intake of food and add a quick mass smoothie. So it's one of those things that was pretty funny. I recall that. I
think a lot of people, not everyone, a lot of people have done something similar to this.
Yeah.
And a quote from Jordan Peterson, if anyone listens or knows of him, he did mention that first you have to accept you will be a lot more inexperienced before you become the master. Right? So you have to accept that you don't know as much initially. And it's okay not to know as much initially on that journey in terms of building muscle, losing body fat, improving your business, becoming a better leader. It's okay. You have to accept being the fool first before you can become the master. And believe it or not, it's interesting you said this too. I too was a skinny guy when I was 16, 17. I started at 145 pounds, 144.
No way.
So I was fast, but I was skinny, mate. So for me too, it's been a very long journey in terms of trying to build up more muscle tissue, improve my confidence as a whole, my mentality, with my physical growth at the same time. It can't be physical. There's a mental maturity to it at the same time. And it was also my cousin, Sanjay. Shout out. Because he was the
It's
one.
always the cousins, man.
Why is that? Why is that? And so I was visiting India, and after a couple of years, I saw Sanjay. I was just like, man, you're so big. What do you do? He had Arnold as in Predator. That's what it was.
Oh.
Like just in like oiled up, like camo. Like he was, and he was a poster behind his bedroom closet, and that's what he was idolizing. So he also helped me kind of get into the space, and I'm happy to say selfishly I've surpassed him because now he's married and whatnot. Yeah. But beyond that point, I can understand where you're coming from. Yeah. I completely get it. With just trying to improve someone's physique, I really encourage listeners to also understand that you have to try to practice self-love. This is something really important in my own journey, and it's trying to understand that along your own unique endeavor, you have to appreciate how far you've come, because you started from zero, and that your zero might be someone else's 90% where they want to at least try to get to. Appreciating how far you've come along your own journey and saying, yes, I did the work and I started along this is really important, because in a separate, different universe, maybe you never started the work. So practicing self-love and appreciating that you are on this road, you have a long way to go, and being kind to yourself is important.
Yeah, for sure. And how have you, Pradeep, just from your own business with, your clients, is that one of those things how, for you, what have you seen from the vast clients that you've worked with, from big, tall, skinny, what takeaway, I guess, from your own clients have you taken away from them in terms of just, like you said, is it the self-love over the journey? Is it is it something else? Like I want to know, just from one takeaway from all the vast clients that you've had, what's one takeaway in terms of what you've learned personally from your clients?
What have I learned from my clients?
Yeah. Have you learned any, like, is there something that kind of stands out from, hey, I started with a certain system for my clients, but I realized that, hey, maybe this isn't the right way, or do I have to be more empathetic to different individuals and their,
Okay. So two things.
Yeah.
First is understanding that the majority do want to learn how to play in their sandbox. So what does that mean? They still want to have an amazing social life. They still want to have a bit of wine, or maybe they want to take wine away. They still want to enjoy amazing Japanese food when they travel to Tokyo, or when they're in Nobu in London, wherever it might be. They need to be guided on how to make improved choices in their meal planning, especially in their social life, so they can still enjoy time with their partner or on their girls' night out without feeling guilty, because this guilt comes on. I am stepping away from this meal plan that is working. I now have a negative association with a social life. That for me has been something that I've had to work with a plethora of clients, and telling them it's okay to have a social life. We're going to work on removing your negative association or guilt with going out and eating off plan. Because if they can eat off plan, yet within a guided sandbox to their best ability, because you can't, if you are not a competitor, you are not going to bring your weighing scale to Nobu and say, hey, I want 24.5 grams of yellowfish tuna. You're not going to do that. Are you mad? Right? So it's help. So that's the first part. It's not, don't feel guilty eating out. Don't start to label foods as bad foods. How do we still have this balance? And with education, get you there.
Right.
So that's the first part. The second part, in terms of what I've learned from my clients is, how do I help them build long-term skills, long-term life skills? Because ultimately, I don't want them to rely on me for 3, 4, 5 years. Then I think at that point, I haven't done my duty to help educate the client.
Right.
So seeing them learn in their own fashion and understanding, oh, she has this obstacle, but he doesn't have the same obstacle. So they come to this. So it's each person has a different obstacle, and it's me trying to understand, how do I get you how do I get you to learn how to solution on your own? How do I help you develop autonomy?
Right.
I'm here to guide you, but I don't want you to always heavily rely on me. Because them developing long-term skills so they can go travel, have a social life, have an amazing corporate career, and look and feel their best and fit in the clothes that they want to,
Right.
is beautiful.
Yeah. I love that. Is there a common obstacle that you've noticed kind of is at the top or in the top few with clients? Like, for example, is meal planning and nutrition is like one of the top obstacles, for example? I'm just curious, just personally.
Yeah.
Or is it, I'm so busy I can't go to the gym, so I need to increase my steps, or I need to do home workouts, or I have 2 kids and a family? These are the obstacles. Like, and I'm sure you've seen commonalities within, again, like you said, a vast range of clients. But I'm curious, is there one that is the shining obstacle that people face the most?
This great question. The shining obstacle many face the most is time. It is literally time, and it is time management over priorities. And even though you might have the best time management, sometimes some things in life need a lot more attention. It's just the way it is. Say, for instance, I don't want someone to take away time from their kids. Go spend time with your kids. It's your family. You ought to do that. I want you to develop a great relationship with your partner and your kids. You do that. And I cannot tell someone, spend less time with your kids, go spend more time on the treadmill. It just is not right for me to say. And so learning, how do I help the client be creative in a manner where they can still achieve these goals with the time that they have allotted to health and fitness? Because we can say everyone has the same 24 hours. Like, everyone, just stop saying that.
Yeah.
Your 24 hours is not the same as a single mom with 3 kids working 3 jobs. You gotta have a bit of empathy, mate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it is often that time variable. Based on the time this person has, what is possible? Deliver empathy to that person in that manner. How I talk and operate with you, Omid, is very different than a mom with 2 kids who's traveling for work. It's very different. It's very different from a single guy who has all the time in the world and only has a 9 to 5.
Right.
So the communication and, hey, you have more time here, you're accountable, mate. Like don't mess around. If it's somebody else, it's a completely different conversation.
Right. No, I love that. And I think I think there's kudos to you, because that takes a lot of self-awareness and understanding, because for us, like, we're different. All of us are different. All of us have different obstacles, and having that, say, this sandbox doesn't work for everybody. Everyone has a different set of sandboxes that they have, and trying to work within the sandbox that's right for you. I think the sandbox is the theme of this episode.
Yeah, it might be just be called Sandbox.
Yeah, the Sandbox episode. That's what we're gonna call
There's
it.
a great quote. Have you heard of Alex and Leila Hormozi?
Yes.
Right, great entrepreneurs. They have some very blunt truths. And something he'd mentioned a few days prior on one of his other interviews, maybe on Lewis Howes or Hose, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name, but he had mentioned the difference between those who are successful and those who are not. It's not necessarily that they have more things than you and I. It's often they lack what we have. Say, for instance, if I am spending more time every evening gaming, the person who's successful lacks that, and instead is meal prepping or trying to prepare for the presentation with corporate clients the next day. Often the most successful people lack what I have or I'm doing.
Right.
That's the differentiator.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
That's a very interesting way of saying it. Because lack sounds more like again, it's a different way of saying like that you are lacking in a specific area versus using gaming as an excuse or something like that, right? So it's very interesting. I like Alex because he's very raw and direct. I've actually watched, I mean, he's taken over the YouTube space. He's all over my YouTube algorithm now. But no, I like that. And especially from a guy who's done a million different, or is just a hustler in general. I like his raw, honest approach with just business because he's not trying to sell you something. You know what I mean? But Pradeep, I just want to know, what have you learned from your own personal bodybuilding journey or just fitness journey in general? It doesn't have to be the bodybuilding or the competitions, but personally, since you've obviously worked out since you were 16, from now, what has been something that you could give advice to our audience, or just some takeaway that someone can understand from your journey?
Great question. When you first asked me that, the first thing that came to mind was when I won nationals in 2021 as a welterweight, being one of the best in Canada. I stopped for a second, and before I landed back in Edmonton from Toronto, and before I entered my condo, I just took a deep breath and said, right, if I can stick it out and endure all that pain, the early mornings, the low food, the training, and just being so depleted and still pushing, even though I didn't want to push. If I can do that in fitness, how do I take that same persistent mentality and perseverance in other areas of life? If I can do this, if this is the toughest thing I ever do, physically and mentally, can I transfer that skill set into business, into corporate life? What does that look like? So I'm not starving in my corporate life, but it is, how do I dig deeper into insights and ask tougher questions to deliver value to my senior leaders? I'm frustrated. I can't find a solution for my director. I'm just going to give up. No, don't give up. Go network with individuals who have shown success in the field and space and come back with insights and then deliver that. Like, work harder. It's not about saying, I'm going to give up with this, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to give up with that, try something different. It's not about building new bridges, because then you just have a bunch of incomplete bridges. Right. It's about sticking it out with the first plan and pushing forward with it as tough as it is. It's understanding, how do you improve upon that plan? Because otherwise you just jump from idea to idea to idea.
Man, I love that, man. And that's kind of I love that mentality, because every single piece of your life has a different challenge. But can you mentally endure and physically endure? If you can endure certain things in this part of your life, can you transfer it over and do it in the other? And I've thought about that in business. Same thing is like, I remember the days, office with no heat, nobody really believing in the vision of my my media company, and starting a podcast. Why are you starting a podcast? And this was before the podcast craze. And I felt like, podcast is a good idea. sticking it out, spending my full Sundays, making marketing collateral for my own podcast, trying to build some sort of audience and all these different things, and sticking it out for at least a few years to see some sort of fruit or some sort of result. But now I'm going back and seeing how can I do it now in the reverse into my fitness. So for you, it might be corporate or maybe your career or maybe your personal projects. And for me, it's the opposite now. I'm trying to figure out, okay, I understand I can endure the business. I can endure the challenges that come with the business. How do I endure the physical pain of reducing weight, being hungry for a bit, waking up on a cold, snowy Alberta a day and making my way to the gym when I don't want to, or getting those steps in? I think that for me has been the biggest challenge. So I have the same mentality as you, but just on the opposite realm.
I'm really happy you articulated that, Omid. Thank you so much for saying that, because what you've done is you have developed the mental fortitude to tough it out when the times are rough. Like you said, no heating in the office, you starting the podcast, developing traction. But what's very important that I want to really highlight for your listeners here is what you just said. You said you stuck it out for years. It wasn't just a week and then gave up. It wasn't just a month and then gave up. It wasn't a year and you gave up. You kept coming back and doing the work, but it wasn't necessarily the same work. It was improved work year after year until your business is now successful, isn't it?
Right.
You didn't just say, I'm going to quit this business, do new business.
That's right.
You stuck it out and you improved your execution of the work required. And I think this is the differentiator in terms of building, if you go back to this bridge analogy, building your own bridge. When you're building this bridge, you aren't just doing the same work without improving the execution of the work. What does that mean? I'm not just putting a brick down and expecting it to just build this bridge automatically. I might put a brick down. Next week is brick and some cement. So we'll stick together. The following month, it might not be a regular brick. It might be a stronger brick. I'm just,
Exactly.
You know what I mean, right? So you stuck it out for years. That's very important for your listeners to know. So kudos to you, mate. Like, it takes a lot of mental perseverance to do that. And this is something I'd like you to touch upon. So I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
There's a difference between knowing an endeavor is tough, fitness, business. You know it's going to be tough to get off the ground. But understanding the feeling of tough.
Yeah. You
have to accept that, oh, damn, I feel this is tough. So with you and your business, at what point did you go from knowing tough to feeling it being tough?
Knowing tough to feeling tough, to it being like actually tough.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's so certain circumstances in my life happened when, for example, I got laid off from the agency. Even though I was doing my own personal business on the side, I had this backing of my 2-week paycheck, right? And so although I was working my 9 to 5 and then 5 to 10 I was working on my business, it wasn't necessary. It was tough in the sense of putting long hours, but it wasn't my back fully against the wall, because I knew that, okay, if I don't get a client this month or I don't execute on my video projects, I still have money coming in. So that was the okay, it's tough, but it's not really tough. But the moment I got laid off and I had a decision to make, go find another job or make your business work. And I had probably a good week of debating in my head of, do I take the risk? Now my back's against the wall. COVID happened, this and that. stuff is happening. The worst time to start a business during COVID, especially media and advertising, because the last thing businesses want during when businesses are shut down and nobody's at work is advertising. There's no point. There's no point in having videos when businesses aren't advertising at the time. So it was one of those things in my head of like, okay, now you have to really show up. This is the time. This is now tough. You have a mortgage, you have car payments, you have family commitments, you have things that you have to pay for. Do I go get another job and then just do my business on the side and say I'm an entrepreneur and fake it? Or do I actually put in the time and effort to figure this out, create systems that actually work, figuring out those systems, not knowing those systems? I've had so many coffees with different people in my circle who run businesses. Raj is a perfect example. Hey, I just need 10 minutes of your time. I don't understand this concept in my business. Obviously, you've ran your own business for a long time. Do you have any advice? Do you know someone? Can you give me just a bit of guidance in my accounting, in my systems, in my operations? I don't know how to do this. What did you do? Can you just give me a little bit of a nugget? And those types of conversations came out of the act of desperation, right? So having that desperation, having my back against the wall for real, and having to try to make this business work, that was tough. That was reality. And so I would say that would be the differentiation from actually tough to actually it's really tough. This is for real now. You act like an entrepreneur. You act like, oh, you're this and that. No, you actually have to do this or your ass has to go get a job. So
right. So reality set in and you went all in on yourself. You took a bet on yourself. It was risky, but look how beautifully it's paid out.
Yeah.
Like I am, so for the audience listening, you don't really fully understand the hustle Omid has. The way this man has grown since I've known him 2 years prior to our discussion over coffee before this podcast, hearing what you're now doing and how it's growing, I am so proud of you, mate.
Thank you, brother.
So good on you. Yeah. And obviously we'll chat more after this interview. And so this goes back to it within health and fitness. Many people understand it will be tough to get into better shape. They understand, like, man, I gotta remove potentially this amount of food. I can't have this much food. I can't enjoy as much cake. I can't enjoy as much wine. It's gonna be tough. But then reality sets in and they begin to feel what tough is. They need to accept that I'm going to be hungry. Yeah, you got to accept that.
Yeah.
You chose this. You need to own it. This is what you want to get to this part of your journey. This is the process. Can you deal with it? You just have to accept it. Because I've been through it and hundreds of other thousands of people have been through it too. We all were there. Yeah. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
So likewise, in your entrepreneurship, with you building a business, what's beautiful is that you almost reverse engineered the skills by asking people who have shown competency in that area. So you reach out to Raj. Raj, I don't know this part of my business. I've seen you show success here. Can you guide me for 10 minutes? So you knew what goal you wanted to, spoke to an authority, reverse engineered it, and you push forward.
Yeah.
So likewise, within health and fitness, individuals want to get to this grand idea of where they want to be. We need to reverse engineer it into smaller blocks.
Right.
But something that came to me the other day, walking back home after training, is when I onboard clients, and you probably can relate this to business as well. When I'm onboarding clients, they have their eyes set on soaring. Like, just, I want to be this person immediately. Man, I got 5 weeks. Help me. I'm like, right, okay. Calm down now. They're soaring above the clouds, and all they think about is above the clouds. But then when they try to jump off that cliff and fly, they unknowingly have let balloons tie to their feet.
Right.
But they don't know that as much. They don't know, and that's okay. So they might fall and stumble. So this is where improving their habits is very important, as opposed to thinking, end goal, I want to be on the magazine cover.
Yeah.
How do we, and goes back to your point on systems that are important, how do we create systems and habits that can be efficiently executed day in and day out, where the end result is inevitable? Sound like Thanos. The end result, the end result is inevitable by just executing on these habits. So when the result comes, you're just like, oh, did I just do that? Yeah, you did. Great job. Let's keep on going.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. You're doing great here.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that because it's the boring stuff. It really is, even in business, man. The admin, the accounting. As a business owner, someone who wants to start a business, the last thing you want to do is accounting. The last thing you want to do is paperwork. You didn't get into business to do accounting and admin and contracts and do processing. That's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah,
that's the last thing you want to do. But guess what? Though that boring stuff is what propels you in the success of your business. And that's something I had to learn. I love video. I love media. I love creating videos for clients. I love doing the creative work. I love having a blank canvas and being able to paint, right? And create this video from nothing to something. But it's not the video that is making my business successful. It's having the right systems for accounting, having the right systems for contract onboarding. How do you provide the deliverables in a nice A to Z process? How do you shrink those timelines so that you can get more clients and do more work so that you have the cash flow for your business, the oxygen for your business to run? And that's some of the hard things of, hey, you know what? I'm not the finance guy. I'm not the numbers guy. I'm the creative guy. I'm the marketing guy. So outsourcing and paying a few extra bucks for accounting is actually the right thing for me, versus trying to figure it out and trying to add this extra stressor. You know what? I'm just going to pay the extra $1, make sure my books are in line. Now I don't have to worry about that, having someone I can trust to handle this part of my business. Okay, great. And now looking at those other things such as admin, such as operations and things like that, the things that you're not good at, or things that you don't want to focus on your business, sure, you would have to learn initially, but then eventually figuring out how to outsource that, understanding it and still doing it is crucial. And it's the same thing with fitness. Who wants to weigh their meals forever or have those specific things that you want to remove that you have to remove out of your life? Who wants to be hungry for a period of time? Nobody. But that's the boring stuff. The gym is easy. Maybe for some people the gym is easy. For me, I love going to the gym. That's not the hard part. The hard part is figuring out my meals. The hard part is getting my steps in. But though, if I get my steps in every single day, if I get my meals in every single day, that long term, that's the boring stuff for me. If I can get a hold of that, that's what's going to, I think, propel me to a different space.
You mentioned something quite important here that I want to touch upon. It is you clearly value your time a lot from what you've told me. You run a very busy business. It's a growing business, an amazing service that you provide to clients, for corporate clients. You don't have time to waste. That's what it really sounds like.
Right.
You would rather pay a little bit to an expert so you save all that time, because you'd rather focus on other things, more important things, isn't it?
Correct.
So even likewise, within the health and fitness industry, this niche that I'm trying to carve out for myself with specifically corporate clients, it's how much does the consumer value their time? Do they want to keep guessing how to reach the end result and be very haphazard with it? Or shall I deliver you the solution with speed and you can start meeting milestones sooner than later?
Right.
Because the sooner someone can start meeting milestones, the better they can feel about their odds of success. I am getting this work done on time, and I know it's working. I can meet the end goal sooner, as opposed to being overwhelmed with this wealth of information that's out there in this world wide web and not doing anything.
Yeah.
So for me, with all my corporate clients, I tell them straight up in the first phone call we have together, I tell them, I don't give you any of the marketing jargon BS. I'm very black and white. I'll tell you, this is what it takes. This is what you will have to play in. At least these are the core basics I'd like you to understand, and then play within your sandbox.
Yes.
And often at times when I tell individuals, these are the core things I want you to focus on, and here are all the options you have, people think, I'm kind of afraid to play.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to play because, unfortunately, I think that I think stigma is the wrong word, but the notion within great meal planning for busy professionals is just that I gotta stick to this. I can only have this protein source. I can only do this. I can only do that. No, there are so many options. It's getting them to understand how to play with a solution that can fast track them to the end result within their capacity.
Yeah. Right. That's what I really love about your program, especially personalized to me. I really love that because obviously when I started, it was the same thing. It's a lot different from what I've experienced in the past with other people. So I really love that you cater to the multiple options because not everyone's the same. The sandbox is a little different for everybody. Yeah. And it's all about understanding the person sitting across from you and understanding that the sandbox is different. And here there are a lot of opportunities and the options of, I got to change my lifestyle, like completely change my body, versus you're saying no. Here's a protein source. Any protein source, this is many options in here. You have to decide what's right for you, right? You have to decide how it can fit for your lifestyle, and versus here's a basic meal plan. Just do this cookie cutter basic meal plan. If you have chicken breast and rice for 6 months straight, you know what I mean? That doesn't work for everybody. At the end of the day, it doesn't work for everybody. So I love that your program is adaptable and malleable.
One, thank you for that, Omar. That's very kind of you. What I also find interesting is when I give clients all these options. So I say lean protein source, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pick anything you like. Go. The world is yours.
Yeah.
Pick anything. Then the topic comes up of time to prep.
Right.
Is it quicker to bake chicken breast? Or are you going to take the time and saute shrimp? Or do you want to go get tuna and fillet the steak? What is your time?
Yeah.
I've given you these options. But now it's up to you to determine, based on the time you have, what is quickest for you. Do you want to take a Sunday and be luxurious and cook like a tuna steak slice it up and plate it? And it's completely up to you.
Yeah.
And so this is where it's something I think I just might put this on a t-shirt. It's discipline times creativity. Trademark. Discipline times creativity. Right? So it's first being disciplined to work within this sandbox and then be as creative as you want within that.
I love that, man.
And if I can really go back to your prior question of where do clients sometimes struggle, is the creativity. Everyone can be disciplined and hate being disciplined to get the job done. Many can do that. But it's how can you now be creative and have some breathing room to have a social life? Because I want you to go to the US in Houston or LA or Boston and enjoy your time there, be creative, yet still have that restraint to be disciplined at the same time. So it's that balance.
Oh, I love that, man. I really, really love that. I think one other thing that I want to touch on is how how have you, personally, managed, obviously you do a lot of different things as well, or at least, you have the career focus and career ambition. As somebody who wants to continuously take stuff to the next level, um, do you find that, um, do you find that it's harder, especially for you? Do you feel like it's a lot more harder, maybe mentally or maybe even physically, to figure out how to scale your business, career, corporate life, relationships, I don't know, versus going to the gym and meal prepping and planning and doing the stuff that maybe is your first love? Because personally for me, just the reason I ask this is I have a lot of things I want to do over the next 5 to 10 years. And a lot of it's not fitness based, obviously, and a lot of it's in the creative realm, the media realm. I love Alphalete, so people that are listening, I'm dripped out in Alphalete right now. I think half of my closet now is Alphalete. Shout out to Christian, who is a serial entrepreneur, but puts his fitness, and obviously he being in the fitness space, obviously fitness is a priority for him. But it's someone that I see and I am inspired by. So a guy like that who's running multiple businesses, who's doing multiple different things, also in the media space on YouTube and doing all these things, I want to know from your end, do you find that that side of your life is the most challenging to figure out? Or is it, the fitness side of things has always been the most challenging, but keeping that consistent throughout your life? What has been the difference?
Great question. How do I say this as efficiently as possible?
I know that was a long-winded question.
No, it's fine. It's great. Lots for me to think about. Okay, let's break this down.
Yeah.
The fitness side of things for me happens almost unconsciously
Right.
because it's almost autonomous. My eyes might be half asleep. I'll go into zombie mode at night. I'll just start meal prepping. Has to get done. I'm just emotional. There's no emotion. It just has to get done. With advancing my career to where I want to be in my corporate life, that takes a lot more strategy. Right. Because I don't simply just want to say, yeah, this is fine. This will get me there. No. Because of how competitive I am in my career and with things I want to do, with the people I want to do it with, because I want to grow with my team. I want the team to grow with me.
Right.
I'm not selfish. I want the team to grow with me. I want to elevate people with me. How do I strategically stack on skills where everyone learns at the same time to understand that my vision is aligned with their vision as well in the corporate space?
Right.
So that takes a lot more strategy, a lot more thinking. With online coaching business, I have specific KPIs. So everything, for whether it might be my own fitness, my own online coaching, or corporate career, it is very goal driven. Like, this is the next step. I've talked to these individuals within the space. I know where my bottlenecks are. I know where I'm lacking in skills. Okay, this is the next step.
Right.
And so you might ask, do I have time and or the capacity to scale things? The reality is there is time. There's always time. But it is now, what is the pace at which each of these things can scale or improve?
Right.
Because I cannot have the unrealistic expectation of things happening in a month.
Yep.
If I want these 3 areas in my life to really succeed, I need to start removing certain habits. I have to, if I want to operate, and this goes back to Alex Hormozy as well, if I want to do things that are rare, I have to start working on different habits. If I want to operate with people in a rare area, okay, what am I doing now that isn't helping to get me there.
And do you feel like your fitness journey has helped in your corporate life? Is there a linear sort of, okay, the discipline and the competitiveness in fitness, has that translated and correlated to the competitiveness and the pushing and the discipline in your corporate and your career?
I would say yes, but with an asterisk. The asterisk being, within the corporate career, I am working with many different colleagues. I'm working with people within marketing, within comms, directors, stakeholders. It is a team group effort to push. And so when I come to the table with new ideas, I have to be persuasive in a manner where the ideas are taken on board, as long as they're data driven, and then it gets put into play. I cannot be selfish and say this is the way or that's it. I cannot put my selfish interests first above the corporate business. The business metrics matter.
Yeah.
So it's a very different arena because there are numerous players. Versus in my health and fitness, it's me.
You versus you.
It's me versus me. It's the old version versus the current version versus the new version I want to be. But you can take that even into your business, isn't it, Omid? I mean, it's where you were a week ago, it's where you are now, and where you want to be a month later or a year later.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's totally, there's different, like you said, different realms, different arenas, if you will. And they translate differently across each one. And like you said, it's the asterisk, right? And I feel, I think just from my small progress that I've made in my habits geared towards fitness have translated directly into my how I move in my business, just physically. And even mentally now, it's kind of the reverse. As I've said before, it's the reverse for me because I know how competitive I want to be in the space. I want to dominate my space. I want to be the best videographer, media agency, digital agency that is in Edmonton and Canada and hopefully the world. But at the same time, I do want to look good. I do want to feel good. And now I'm looking at the mirror and looking at myself and saying, can I do this for myself now? Can I be just as competitive, just as accountable when you've had such a long day, you haven't fulfilled your steps? And it's not about Pradeep being accountable in our weekly check-ins. It's, are you accountable to yourself? The guy in the mirror that you've said that you're going to do these things. Are you going to just let your word go? Because nobody else is in that, in the arena. It's just you. So if you don't take your word account, if you don't hold yourself to the standard that you've told yourself, you're letting yourself down. Nobody else is going to see it other than yourself. So it's not like you're going to get public embarrassment or team or whatever, but can you hold yourself to the standard that you've told yourself? And that's been the biggest challenge, and saying, yes, you are holding yourself. You're looking at that golden nugget, that thing that you've always wanted to be. But do you really hold yourself accountable on a daily basis to get to there? So I know, long-winded, brother.
I wish all your listeners just saw me smile. That was so beautifully said, man. There are two things I want to touch upon. First thing is, it was really wonderful seeing you articulate the fact that when no one's watching, when you're alone and you look in the mirror, are you doing what you set out to do? Have you gained your own self-respect? Are you respectful to your own words? I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Second, have you heard of there's an individual named Chris Williamson, and he'd mentioned that the worst version of hell is when the person you are meets the person you could have been.
That's crazy.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Right, that's wild. And so when I saw that clip, that really stuck with me. And yeah, I mean, can you imagine if next week, Monday, someone said, yeah, you're going to meet somebody. Okay. Monday, 9 a.m. It's you, but it's you in the future who did all the work.
That's insane.
Right?
I love that.
Right? The worst version of hell is when the person you are meets the person you could have been. And it might be difficult to digest for many people, but it's also about trying to develop habits, whether it's in fitness or your business, where you follow through. You need to follow through. Whether you're leading in your business or for me as a fitness coach, I can set through guidelines to help guide the client or guide the business. I can do that. But at the end of the day, as sustainable as we make this, as foolproof of the systems we make it, if it isn't followed through, then what's the point?
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head, and I think there was a similar analogy to that, but you said it really, really well. But there was a similar analogy or a story where the person who passes away and he's in heaven and he's sitting across from God, and he's like, okay, son, you can ask me any questions that you want. Tell me, you have any questions? This is the time. And he asks, he's like, oh, you remember that time in my life when I was contemplating this thing that I was contemplating? What would have happened if I if I said yes to this opportunity and if I actually did it? And then God says, oh, you would have been a billionaire, and your life would have been on a completely different trajectory. And you would have been in magazines, and you would have been the successful guy. I butchered the analogy, by the way. I know it's a story. It's probably a little bit more in depth, but the whole premise was, had you taken that risk and said yes to that opportunity, had you executed on the thing that you were contemplating, your life would have been completely different, and you would have been that person that you had wanted to be. And so I think the analogy and the whole idea and the lesson here is whether it's in business or fitness, to say yes and execute on those opportunities, execute and stand by your word, because it's you versus you in the mirror, and it's nobody else is watching. It's just you. And it doesn't matter whether you say yes or no to other people, but you could completely change your life if you just execute and you hold what you say accountable to yourself, and that's it.
You need a shirt made saying "execute on opportunity." I'll give you that one. So Omid owns the right to that. Like, no one try to take this.
Eventually, me and Pradeep are gonna make some merchandise. So we're just gonna have all of these slogans.
It'll just be like in association and collab with Second Floor Podcast.
Exactly, Sandbox. That's what it is. We're gonna have one that says Sandbox. You know.
Yeah. You know what's really funny though? Raj takes the mick out of me. He whenever I say things like this, he voice notes it to me and says, he repeats it after me, and he says, I have told this in my group chat. I'm not part of this group chat. He's just like reiterating what I've said, which is quite funny. The story that you've just told almost touches upon regret.
Yeah.
Right? Another brilliant quote, and I forgot who says this, it's when we make a choice, no matter what choice we might make, sometimes there is a bit of regret. Oh, I wish I could have done this, or I wish I did this instead. I wish I hadn't done that instead. But often it is when you make a choice, what is the regret you could most live with?
Yes.
That's where it is.
Yes.
What is the action you are going to do or the opportunity you will execute upon when at the same time you can go to bed sleeping with that regret?
Yeah. Yeah. That's facts, man. I think, and even touching base on, live and die by your own sword. Live and die by your own sword, and be okay with the decisions that you make. I think that's huge. I think in business and fitness and whatever, I think the one thing that I've learned is just, once you make a decision, whether it's in business, you make the decision that is at the time the most right decision that you can make, and just live by it. Because in business, it's such an unknown realm. If you're trying to scale and you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the team, the resources, you don't have advisors, you don't have board members, you don't have directors, so you can only make the decision to the best of your knowledge. And it's better to do and fail miserably than to not execute at all. That's the biggest thing I've learned, is truck forward, and if you look like a dumbass at the end of the road, you have moved. You're not sitting and debating 7, 8 different roads or paths and not moving at all. I feel like that would just eat me alive if I don't make a decision, if I don't invest in my health, if I don't invest in my business some way, shape, or form. I'm going to look back and say, man, in my early 20s or in my late 20s, I had all these grand ideas, starting a podcast, doing some cool things in media, rapping. I have opportunity to do these things, and yet I didn't execute because what would someone say, or how would someone feel, or I don't know if that's the right thing because I don't want to offend certain people. Man, I couldn't live with that regret of not moving at all.
It sounds like you're saying fail forward.
Fail forward.
Fail forward. Are you also of the same mentality that you would rather, because you started your business during COVID, would you rather start when times are really tough and you got a ton going on, or would you rather start something new and amazing when life's a lot easier?
I mean, I would probably take the latter, right? I mean, anyone would take the latter of the easier route, but I feel like if we're talking about business, I feel like there's going to be a point where it's going to get really tough. And so whether you start when there's butterflies and sunshine and rainbows, or whether you start in the mud, I think eventually it's going to get to a point where there's going to be mud, and it's going to be dirt, and it's going to be all hands on deck. The reason I didn't take the leap with my business, I could have taken the leap on my business years ago, before being in the marketing agency, before all the things that have happened in the world. But when COVID happened and the opportunity was sitting there, take the path of the entrepreneur and business owner, which you've always talked about and always dreamed of, or take the path of go find another marketing gig and you can still work on your business. And it was difficult. It was a difficult decision. But had I not taken my path of trying to figure out business, I would have sat here and regretted and thought, man, what if? What would have that looked like? And so I just feel like it doesn't matter when you start, you just have to move. And again, I know a lot of guys my age who are contemplating businesses and contemplating creative projects and contemplating corporate shifts and going into certain realms and saying, oh yeah, like I want to do this, Omid, I want to do that, Omid. And it's like that contemplation, and the longer that contemplation is probably the biggest hindrance, because you start putting out all these different ideas, negative. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I do this? What if I do that? Oh, if I do my business, I'm going to lose out on this corporate opportunity. But if I take the corporate opportunity, what if my business shines? Like, you have to sitting, and then at that, what happens is you become stagnant. You just sit in the midst of looking at all the opportunities, and years pass by. And then I talk to some of these guys 6 months later, 12 months later, a year later, and say, hey, that idea that you were going to start a podcast because you were inspired by my podcast, what happened to that? Oh, you were inspired by my move from doing my business. What happened to that? Oh, bro, like this happened. Oh, I had this and I had this. And it hurts them inside talking about it, because they just sat too long in thinking about that opportunity. And so I think the biggest lesson, or the biggest takeaway, or something that I give to the audience or whoever's listening, is it doesn't matter if it's the right or wrong decision. Just move in any way, shape, or form. Just move.
Does everyone listening understand how passionate Omid just sounded? the amount I would pay to hear you talk like this in front of 100,000 people.
Oh, I appreciate it, brother.
Because the way you move with your words is really something else.
Thank you.
From what you just said. Like, it was so passionate, mate. Yeah. Consider talking on stage to other individuals who are wishy-washy about their business endeavors, because you've been there through the mud. Yeah. And you come out to the other side. So 2 points there. First is the number of clients who have succeeded the most in their journey from a health and fitness standpoint, or those who started when times were epically difficult and tough for them. Work, it might be side hustle, traveling. They had so much going on, but they still want to tackle health and fitness. So there's this added pressure. So they started when times were tough, and then when times were much easier, when they finished their online courses, when work slowed down, it was really easy. Like, yeah, I can manage all of this. And then when life got harder again, they said, oh, hello, my old friend. I can still do this because I know what it felt like during tough times. That's the first part. Second part, this touching point, your point, is you mentioned thinking over a long time, just hibernating on thoughts. Do you feel that when an entrepreneur, leader, someone looking to get into better health and fitness or shape, do you feel people pondering over that long time are developing exotic failures that aren't even real?
Yeah. 100%.
Why do you think that is?
100%. It's you fall in love with the idea of doing the things that you dream of. And so the actual idea and the feeling of that idea is more of the rush that they're looking for unconsciously versus actually doing the work, right? I want to be an Arnold, a Christian Guzman, Pradeep. I want to have that body. But that thought is the dopamine rush. What do I got to do? Oh, I got to meal prep. I got to wake up and get my steps in. I got to go to the gym. Oh, what would that look like? And you ponder and you ponder. What would that look like if I hired Pradeep to coach me and guide me? What would that look like? But what if I fail? But what if I succeed? What would that look like? What would that feeling? But then that feeling lasts a moment in time. What would that look like if I started that podcast? Oh man, look at what Kenny and Omid are doing. It's so amazing. I want to do that. What would that look like? That feeling of being on camera, the feeling of having these things. It's just that feeling. And that feeling they try to stretch. But then what happens is it starts cracking with, but what would people think? But what if this? But what if that? But what if this happens? But what would my wife think? What would my brother think? What would my friend think? And then all of these things start to crack into that foundation of that idea. And then it's okay to just throw it under the rug and not worry about it. You know?
The people try to get wrapped around their imagination. I think that's what you're saying. They fall in love with imagining success more than the reality of doing said work. Whether it be trying to grow an amazing business like yourself or get into the best shape of their life and learning lifelong skills, they really do get wrapped up around daydreaming of what it could be like. But there's a difference between doing something and thinking of something. Sure, obstacles will come up. You've faced obstacles in your business. This is life. It's not a bed of roses. Obstacles come up in your health and fitness. You can't go outside, or you don't have a meal prep, or you can't go to the gym today. What do? This is life. You have to solution for things. It will never be perfect or smooth sailing. You can attest to this as a business owner. It will never be smooth sailing. And so you just have to roll with the punches and learn how to solution when and where the obstacle comes from. And this is why you have a series of mentors to talk to. Hey, I'm facing this. You've overcome this. Help guide me. Right?
Yeah, I agree. And another thing I want to add on to that is a lot of guys get into the feeling of the chase. So the actual feeling like you are productive or you are on the right path is actually the thing that's hindering them. So for example, I know individuals who have always wanted to have a great body or have always wanted to start a business, a successful business. And I will sit across from them and we'll have conversations and they'll say all the right things, man. This, that, the things that we talk about. And, but yet years will have passed by and we recall and we have these coffees and we have these conversations, and the pivots that they've made in their life have been linear, but they say and they claim that they want the golden nugget. They want that. But the actions and behaviors have not backed the words and the saying. So I feel like individuals will unconsciously tell themselves, I want to be fit and I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to start this creative idea. But it's in a time that whenever they're motivated or whatever the case may be, they'll do it at that point and life gets in the way. And then it's, you know what? Nah, bodybuilding wasn't for me. You know what? Starting a business or starting a podcast, I'm in a different point in my life now, Omid. I'm doing now this. So the moves that they have made have actually just been linear through all across their life, whether it's business, health, relationships. It's linear. But in their mind, or what they're saying is, I want that. So I think what I'm trying to say is that the chase of looking at, I want that golden nugget, I want the successful business, the successful body, but the moves and actions have all been linear over 3, 5, 6 years. They've put themselves unconsciously in the continuous chase of just doing the things in spurts and doing the things and saying the right things to themselves, but they never get anywhere. It's very interesting to me.
Why do you think people are excited, or why do you think they get a rush by saying the right things to themselves or to you, but they don't execute? Why is there a disconnect?
Well, I think there's at least one factor of comparison, right? Like I'm looking at a Pradeep, I'm looking at an Omid, I'm looking at a Raj, I'm looking at guys online or in my space or in my field. Oh, that would be cool. Oh, Omid, you got a Tesla. That's cool. I want that. But that feeling of like, I want that, and actually doing it and bleeding out of your eyes to get that is something that that longevity of pulling that thought and stretching it over time. Oh, but then I have to start a business. Oh, but then I have to work 12 hours. Oh, but then I have to go to the gym. Then I have to meal prep. I have to tell my wife to not make the curries and the dals and all these things. And I have to now switch these things. That's hard. That takes that habit of that being in that habit and just building those roots. I'm saying the right things, but I physically can't execute. I physically can't do it. But I'm saying the right things. But all I have to do, Pradeep, is I just have to say the right things. And eventually, I'm just going to improve daily. I'm going to improve daily. Oh, you know what? It hasn't happened. But you know what? We're improving daily. How many times do you have to say that before you actually have to do something about it? Right? How many times there's at a certain point, you just have to not be cool with being number 2. You have to face reality and say, you know what? I am fat. I am not in the place that I want to be, and this is not good. And it comes back to the accountability across the guy across in looking in the mirror and saying, I'm not okay with this. And in certain points, you got to take out that empathy. Say, you know what? I am a loser to myself. And this is something that David Goggins always says. He says stay hard, and a lot of his language is very direct and raw. And he says, you know what? You have to admit that you're a fucking loser, is how he says it. And then once you're a little bit hard on yourself and face the reality versus saying, oh, I'm just improving, I'm doing this. No, be real with yourself and say, do I really want that? Do I have the audacity to say I want that type of body? I have the audacity to say I want that business. Do you really want that business, or is this just a hobby? Do you really want that Greek god status, or is it just a hobby? If I'm going to the gym as a hobby, then admit that it's a hobby, and there's nothing wrong with that. But don't sit across from me and have a coffee with me and have a conversation with me and say, I want Greek god status. I want a successful business. But then years have gone by and you haven't done the things that you're saying. You're just fooling yourself at the end of the day.
I want to quickly touch upon that internal dialogue you just mentioned about removing the empathy and being hard on yourself. I know when I'm in the gym or when I'm trying to get work done for my corporate clients in my day job, the things I tell myself are definitely and probably not things someone else would tell themselves.
Right.
So my internal dialogue is a lot harsher than it ought to be. But It's just I work better in that manner.
Right, exactly.
So based on that fact, does calling yourself a loser motivate you, positively encourage you, or do you think one's internal dialogue has to be a lot more encouraging? So say, for instance, as opposed to calling ourselves a loser, do we then say, you know what, mate? I dropped the ball today. I could have done better. Tomorrow, we're going to do this. Like you're capable of doing this. I want you to show up. Is that a better form of self-talk than calling yourself a loser? Because some people really resonate with David Goggins.
Yeah.
And some people just want it rephrased into something else.
I mean, again, you have to know your personality, but I feel like it's behavior as well. Like, if there's been years of, like you said, you can give them the sandbox, Pradeep. You've worked every little thing. You understand their lifestyle. You've talked to them enough to understand what they like, what they don't like. You've given the blueprint to do what needs to be done. But then years pass by, nothing has happened. There's a disconnect there. So either they're not following the blueprint and they're fooling themselves thinking that they are, right? something needs to change, right? So some people, like you said, maybe they encouraging, you keep going, you got this, it's okay. Maybe that works for some people. I just know myself personally that I like the real, raw, uncut, give it to me straight, man. Tell me I'm fat. Because that anger, that emotion is going to move me more versus it's okay, brother, you got it next week. I don't like that. Because personally, I need shake me up a little bit. Get me out, shock me a little bit to say, yo, like you are. When my parents told me, last week my parents told me, hey, you're getting a little chunky, mate. You're a little chunky. And my dad saying that, oh man, that fuels me up. Tell me, and then maybe that's just how I was raised. I know my parents were a little, my dad, a military guy, so his is always raw and uncut. You're fat. Get your ass in the gym. Okay. Yes, sir. You're right. You know what? Don't sugarcoat it for me. But maybe some people, and again, that's different. But I just feel like sometimes you just need that shakeup. Sometimes the real, and again, even in business, oh, you didn't hit your quota this month. You didn't hit your KPI this month. It's okay. You got it next month. Business is not like that. You need to be real. The cash flow that comes into your business, did you hit your numbers? No. Why? Because you didn't do X, Y, Z. It's okay. You didn't try hard enough. Because guess what? You're going to go out of business if you tell yourself, it's okay. You can do it next month. Because next month comes and you're going to miss the goalpost again. You're going to miss the goalpost again and miss the goalpost again. And again, I just personally knowing individuals knowing some individuals, I see a little bit of a pattern of I want this, but then years pass by and nothing happens. And it's like at a certain point, you just got to tell, unempathetically, unapologetically, you just got to tell yourself that you are the way you are. And if you don't make a drastic change, the thing that you're looking at, you're always going to chase forever. You're never going to hit that potential.
And now I am speechless. That's what Omar does. Now I'm speechless.
The sandbox, baby.
This is the sandbox. Oof, man, you got to talk on stage, man. You got to talk on stage at some point. So sticking with the ethos of this podcast, the Second Floor podcast,
yes,
because we want listeners to know that they can completely develop the ability to succeed in their own manner, in their own journey, health and fitness or business. How do you think listeners should apply the pressure on themselves to reach that second floor? Because clearly, sometimes it's a big priority for somebody. They get shaken up, but sometimes they just kind of say, meh. So how do they apply the pressure to get to that second floor and above?
I mean, I'll give an analogy.
Sure.
Right? There's a guy. He's walking on the street and he's walking by a house and he sees an owner with his dog on the porch. They're sitting and he hears the dog whining and like kind of weird whining. And he's walking by and this dog is whining and whining. So he can't help but ask the owner, hey, why is your dog whining like that? The owner says, because he's sitting on a nail. The guy says, well, why doesn't the dog get up off the nail and sit somewhere else? The owner says, because it doesn't hurt enough to get off the nail. Actually, it hurts more to get off the nail and move somewhere else. So this is a business analogy, and I really, really resonated with it, is that sometimes we're just sitting on the nail and whining. And it's actually easier to sit on the nail than get off the nail and move to a different and better place. And personally, from my own experience in business and life is that I've always wanted to reach the second floor. And that's why I created this platform and why I'm so passionate about this is I've never had the blueprint. I never had the handout. I never had the, hey, if you just do XYZ, you will be successful. Never had that. And I've had to, with all my might and heart, get off the nail. And whether I'm bleeding off the nail and trying to figure out being in a better position, it's the constant outreach and the constant movement that has allowed me to push a little bit and hopefully get to that second floor. And so I think something that the audience could potentially take away from just my perspective is, if you're not constantly looking to the second floor, you're never going to find it, and you're never going to move, and you're never going to want to move off that nail. And if the nail doesn't hurt enough for you to move, then you don't have the thing that's going to get you to the second floor.
That's a really great analogy.
Yeah, bro.
Thank you for sharing. And that analogy of the dog sitting on the nail versus the pain to get off the nail, that was really wonderfully said. To all the listeners here, sure, I do offer health and fitness coaching, but I just want to be real with everyone here. Yes, it is going to be potentially tough for you to go through your own journey. Everyone's tough is different. My tough, different from your tough, Omid, to someone who doesn't have responsibilities. Sure, there will be hardships. I have them, you have them, someone else has them. But the goal is, you want to get to a better place. We want the audiences to get into a better place, business-wise, leadership-wise, health and fitness, no matter what it might be. The opportunity is there for everyone to improve. It's just, are you going to bite your tongue and still continue to move forward? Are you going to get off that nail? And does it matter enough to you to succeed and fail forward? Because you are going to fail forward. I failed forward. I at some point made mistakes. I'm sure you and your business made mistakes. We all made mistakes. Like, we are not sitting here as quote unquote masters. Like, we are not perfect individuals. It's not like we never made a mistake. It's not like we never stumbled. It's okay to make mistakes. So it's okay to stumble, and it's okay to feel pain. We're trying to humanize this process for you. Trying to make this as relatable as possible to you, and knowing that we too had struggles. I mean, Omid, I can't even imagine the struggles you had in your business. I mean, there's a lot I can learn from you.
Right.
I mean, we'll have more coffees after this, but to all the audiences listening, you as Omid said it, and I cannot say this any better, you just have to start.
Yeah.
Right. You can keep having the guidance, but no one's going to keep pulling you towards your own journey.
That's right.
Right.
Yep, I agree 100%. Pradeep, man, I appreciate this conversation, man. I've been enjoying this past hour, and so I want to just say thank you for coming on, and thank you for this conversation. Always learn something when we have conversations, so I appreciate that. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? Can you plug in where they can find you?
Of course. First off, Omid, thank you for this opportunity. I mean, thank you for the space you present. Thank you for the guests you have on this show. It's an amazing platform. What you and Kenny do as a duo needs to be highlighted, because the value you deliver to the community at large with numerous professionals here is amazing. It's something for people to learn. So one, just thank you. I appreciate you, my man, and the progress you're making in your own journey, health and fitness, and or in business. So for those who want to reach out to me and discuss health and fitness or beyond that, you can catch me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Progress with PB. That's P for Papa, B for Bravo. Progress with PB on Instagram. You can find me. I'm an open book, and let's talk shop. I mean, Omid, I appreciate your time, mate. Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother. As you know, Second Floor, you guys can find us every Monday on all your favorite audio platforms. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. You can find us on YouTube at Second Floor Podcast. And also, as a lot of our listeners know, we are on the radio now, and we have a leadership program called Full Switch every Friday, 6 to 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. So if you guys are listening to the radio on your way back home from work, 6 to 7:30, me and Kenny, we bring on guests, we bring on leaders, we also highlight leaders, and we also talk about leadership topics and all that fun stuff similar to Second Floor. So appreciate you guys, and that is a wrap.